Joining me right now is former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus. Morgan, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Assess where we are right now in this war.
Maria. Well, we're not in a good position. I will say that it's a very David and Goliath scenario when you look at the Ukrainians, and they certainly have the will to fight for their country. The Goliath obviously being Russia in terms of their superior military capabilities. But listen, if it was going well, we wouldn't see what was reported last night from the Financial Times, which is that that Russia has asked China for military help. And I can underscore how crucial this is. You have the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, going to meet with the lead person for foreign affairs in China, Yang Jiechi, today. I believe it's today. That is going to be an incredibly important meeting because I think the Chinese, this is a very pivotal moment for them and a pivotal moment for the world, Maria, because if the Chinese do decide to get involved militarily and help the Russians, that will be something that will clearly be bad for the Ukrainians. But I think that has broader ramifications for world geopolitics if the Chinese do indeed get involved.
So, Morgan, you have announced that you are running for Congress, and you obviously have a background in foreign policy. Give us your sense of policy right now and whether or not the policy of this administration is meeting this moment. I mean, you've got day 19 of the war on Ukraine, but you also have Iran claiming responsibility for a missile attack that struck near a U.S. consulate complex in Iraq. The attack sent U.S. troops running for shelter. At least 2 people were injured in the blast. It comes as the U.S. is trying to strike a deal with Iran to return to the Iran nuclear deal. You've got upset across the world. What should the U.S. be doing in terms of foreign policy?
Well, thank you so much, Maria, for bringing that up, because the administration basically tried to bury this story yesterday. It's very concerning. It was reported that about Saturday night, our time, about 12 ballistic missiles were shot and landed, as you said, near U.S. consulate and other facilities in Erbil, Iraq. These ballistic missiles, by the way, would be the ban on them would be let go under the new JCPOA agreement, reportedly. It's also important to note that this administration speaks out of both sides of their mouth. On one hand, they condemn Russia on a daily basis for what they're doing in Ukraine. They essentially, say that they cannot be trusted. On the other hand, they have the Russians not just negotiating with us in Vienna to get back into the Iran deal. They have the Russians negotiating for us with the Iranians to get back into the Iran deal. And so this could not be more failed, right? I mean, I don't know how anybody could say on one hand you can condemn the Russians and say they're terrible and awful for what they've done in Ukraine, and on the other hand, you let the other side of their government negotiate with us. So this is, we're very lucky that there is no American loss of life, but I consider these sorts of activities an act of war. And how we could still be sitting at the negotiating table talking about billions of dollars of sanctions relief, talking about allowing things like ballistic missile production, talking about the IRGC Quds Force, which we in the Trump administration designated as a foreign terrorist organization. They're talking about potentially letting them out from under that designation, not because they've agreed to stop terrorism, but for political ends. Look, the IRGC Quds Force is likely responsible for the attack on American facilities. So this is a weak and failed foreign policy, no matter what theater you're going to around the world. And this appeasement of regimes like Russia and Iran is leading to more and more instability around the world. And I think it's a quite scary moment, Maria.
And it's raising questions about this administration's policy. You just laid it out. It's essentially partnering with Russia in an Iran deal, allowing Russia to speak on behalf of the United States. So, I mean, you're partnering with Russia. Is that one of the reasons that we are deciding not to send the MiG jets, for example, to Ukraine? What is the reason? Are we giving the Ukrainians all that they need to fight back effectively?
No, and in fact, over the past year, and at least the past 6 months, but over the past year, I've counted at least 3 times, this is reported in the media, where Jake Sullivan held up lethal aid to the Ukrainians because he said, well, we'll give them the aid if Russia invades. So their deterrent strategy failed. Maria, you interview CEOs all the time. You know how these negotiations work, and clearly we are just not meeting the moment.
Yeah. All right, Morgan, thanks very much. We'll be watching your campaign, and we appreciate your insights on this. Morgan Ortagus this morning.